At the end of every year, Forbes magazine publishes a list of the world's most powerful people. The control over resources of the world, a person's influence on global events, and on its people. All these are factors that are taken into account. In the current list, third place goes to Angela Merkel, second place to Donald Trump, and the first place to Vladimir Putin, who in fact has been leading the list since the year 2013. And that is surprising, considering that his country, Russia, has a population of 145 million people. Compared to the United States or other largely populated countries like China or India, that's relatively small. Economically, Russia might be strong, but it's not leading the list, being the world's 12th wealthiest country by gross domestic product. So why is the president so powerful? And how is Vladimir Putin transforming Russia and the world? Putin was born in 1952 in St. Petersburg, which was called Leningrad at the time. His father was a factory worker and a convinced communist who fought in the Second World War against the Germans. Before Vladimir Putin was born, his two brothers both died at a young age, one of them during the time of occupation by the German army. More than 1 million people died in the city of Leningrad at that time, most of them by starvation. Putin's mother Maria was one of the few who survived it. Being the only child born after the war and the only one that survived, his parents wanted Vladimir Putin to succeed. He owned a watch as a child and even his own car as a student, an extreme luxury at the time in the communist Soviet Union. From a young age on, Putin was inspired by Soviet spy movies like The Shield and the Sword and wanted to become an agent for the KGB, the Soviet intelligence agency. He was advised to study law first, which he did at St. Petersburg State University. Right after graduation, he began his career at the KGB. Between 1985 and 1990, Putin worked as an undercover agent in Dresden, Germany, where he was trained in surveillance and was monitoring visitor groups. Dresden became one of the towns with the largest peaceful demonstrations against the government at the end of the 80s that ultimately led to the collapse of the socialist East German country. During the fall of the Berlin Wall on the 9th of November 1989, Putin was burning secret KGB files to prevent demonstrators from getting their hands on them. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Putin worked in several branches of the St. Petersburg government until he moved to pursue his political career in Moscow. Under Boris Yeltsin's presidency, Putin made a career at rapid speed. He was responsible for the relations between the government in Moscow and the regional Russian governments. He then was promoted to become head of the Federal Security Service, which is the follow-up organization to the KGB. On the 9th of August 1999, Boris Yeltsin announced Putin to become his successor as president. And on New Year's Eve 1999, Putin became the official president of the Russian Federation. Russia is the biggest country on Earth, stretching from Kaliningrad, Europe, all the way to the Bering Strait, covering 9 different time zones. Because Russia is so far north and its land is mostly flat, which creates a cold climate, most of the population is living in the European part of the country. When Putin came into office, the Soviet Union had just collapsed, and there were many separatist movements across Russia. He reordered the 89 federal subjects of Russia into 7 administrative districts. Putin also changed the system so that local governors of those regions were not elected directly by the people anymore. Instead, they are appointed by the president. This move was criticized and described as anti-democratic. It fits into one of the reasons why he is so popular inside of Russia. He understood that many Russians wanted someone who brought back the feeling of old strength, and he himself sees his role as someone who has to reunite and keep Russia together. Under Boris Yeltsin, many Russians felt like they had a clown at the top, a Western puppet, and the economy under Yeltsin was collapsing. But once Putin came into office, the country overcame the time of transition and gained back economic growth. Putin knew that the people wanted to get the country's pride and identity back. In 2000, he even brought back the old Soviet national anthem, although with slightly different lyrics. Even though Russia is immensely huge, its access to the oceans is limited. The Arctic Ocean in the north freezes for almost 6 months every year, and even though Russia has access to the Black Sea, it's still dependent on Turkey, who control the Bosphorus that connects the Mediterranean Sea. One large Russian Navy base and part of the Black Sea Fleet is on the port of Sevastopol. The Russian army has been stationed there for a long time, and the port was leased by the Ukrainian government to Russia after the fall of the USSR. When Russia annexed the Crimean Peninsula in 2014, it also ensured the control over that base, which is of significant military importance. Out of the 10 biggest Russian companies, 5 are either completely owned by the government or have the government as the major stockholder. And out of the 10 companies, 6 are in the oil and gas sector. The largest one is Gazprom, which is owned majorly by the federal government, and revenue from oil sales make up 40% of Russia's state budget. This is a strength and a curse at the same time. It gives Russia control over the European Union and its biggest trade partners. At the same time, it makes Russia very dependent on oil price and export. If the oil price drops, Russian growth drops. And since it's based off of natural resources, it's not really a modern economy, ready for the future challenges in the ages of digitization and renewable power. Therefore, Vladimir Putin is trying to modernize the country by creating a state-funded companies. And this happens in all sectors: aircraft companies, nuclear technology, high-tech industry, huge companies that in the future should be privatized. And it's serving 2 goals. It's investing in long-term projects. At the same time, the structure is interesting because none of these companies underlies a certain ministry. Instead, they directly underlie the Prime Minister. And most of those companies were founded in 2007, right before Putin had to step down because the Constitution didn't allow him to run for a 3rd term as president in 2008. He then changed to become Prime Minister and supported Medvedev to become president, and with many influential leaders beneath him, he had successfully spread his power. But Putin's influence is also growing outside of Russia. In 2005, his government founded the state television network Russia Today, which now has networks in Russian, Arabic, English, and German. The purpose is not on Russian viewers at all, but on international attention, which also explains why 80% of the network's budget is spent abroad.
Когда мы задумывали это предприятие в 2005 году, мы исходили из того, что на мировой информационной сцене должен появиться еще один игрок, который не только будет объективно рассказывать о том, что происходит в нашей стране, в России, но и попытается, я хочу вот это подчеркнуть, попытается сломать монополию англосаксонских СМИ.
It's all part of a broader foreign strategy to influence other countries. Based in St. Petersburg, the Russian government is sponsoring the web brigades, teams of people that comment on blogs and post to change public opinion and promote the Russian view of things. Moscow is supporting several pro-Russian parties abroad, like the Jobbik Party in Hungary, the Freedom Party in Austria, or Forza Italia. Marine Le Pen, who runs for president in the upcoming French election, has even received a credit of over €9 million from Moscow to finance her party's campaign. And then, there are also claims of Putin ordering the hacking of the Democratic National Convention to change public American opinion and to promote the election of Donald Trump. Putin is challenging the European Union as well as the United States in major conflicts of war in Ukraine and Syria. In Ukraine, he has annexed the Crimean Peninsula and is fighting a war in the eastern part of the country. In Syria, he is supporting the government led by Assad and is fighting the rebels that were backed by the United States. He has transformed Russia's structure so that its power is secured tightly, and with his personal wealth and the immense influence he has on opinions all across the globe, he is probably the most powerful person on earth at this moment. And as so often, views on him are very opposing. Like 2 sides of the very same coin, people celebrate him, and approval ratings inside Russia are fantastic. And others see him as a dictator who has squandered Russia's chance to become a liberal and free democracy. And at the end, history will decide on which side the coin will land on. This video was not made to promote a certain opinion on Vladimir Putin. It was made to show the realities of how he is transforming Russia around the world. If you want to support more videos like this, then subscribe and share this documentary. And if you want to know more about the conflicts in Ukraine and Syria, check out these videos we've made earlier.